All right. Welcome to the General Strike Summit. Today is day one, and I'm joined here today with FHL member, fellow FHL member, Nick. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing good, CJ. I think this is going to be a great day for our community because at Fred Hampton Leftists, our goal is to unite a coalition to fight this late-stage capitalist police state hellhole that we live in. There's going to be a lot of discussions, and I said from the very beginning that I am willing to talk to people who disagree with my strategy because I am willing to improve as a leftist. I want our community to improve, even if someone come on here and schools me, right? But this is the dialogue that we need to have because our government, the powers that be that run the U.S. empire, is beyond the pale. So I'll pass it right back to you, CJ. But this is the question I want to start the summit with. Do you think we should have a general strike or not? I just want you guys to ponder on this. If your answer to that question is no, explain to me what your option is. If you don't have an option, you need to do some reading. You need to do some soul searching because I don't know how you could sleep at night leaving behind all the people who are victims of the state violence of our government. Now, if your answer is yes, we should have a general strike, but you acknowledge that it's hard to organize, my response to that is let's get started. So that's what we're doing here at the General Strike Summit. Welcome, guys.
Yes, welcome. And let's introduce our first, I guess you can call him guest, but he's a comrade. He's part of the community. How are you doing, Case? Or everybody online knows you as CaseStudyQB, but how are you doing, Case? Oh, hang on a second.
There we go. Thank you. No worries. I'm so excited to be here. I love organizing. I love action. You know, I'm one of those people that when I first heard about forced to vote, I said, hey, let's do it. I heard about March for Medicare for All. I said, hey, let's do it. And then I was watching Fred Hampton Leftists when I remember when Compton J first talked about, hey, I'm thinking about doing this General Strike Summit, and we're not going to do the actual summit. Well, we're going to get everybody together. We're going to discuss and plan, plot, strategize, you know. And I was like, I'm right there with you, brother. So I'm here. And about a month ago, and I'm going to discuss it in my presentation, I did listen to the audio book of a book called This Is an Uprising. And it was such an excellent book. I was like, man, this would make a great addition if I could make a workshop of all the main points and make a workshop and put this on the General Strike Summit. It would be great. And that's what this came from. So
yeah. Wow, you did tell the story about how you heard about the General Strike Summit, and I mentioned this to Nick and everybody with FHL. You were one of the first people who actually reached out and was like, "Hey, that's a great idea."
Yeah.
And was very excited from the beginning. Go ahead, Nick.
DJ, I think we was like live on one. Yes. Straight out politics on the Wednesday.
Yeah, that could have been it.
Why don't we just hold the General Strike Summit?
Yeah.
The people in the chat was like, "Yo, that's a good idea," and then we were like, "All right, fuck it, let's do it."
Yeah. And it just kind of snowballed different ideas over several days, but it was so weird when we reached out to you, Case, and said, "Hey, you know, when is your availability? Your availability happened to be this time," and then when we talked about what you're discussing, it was like, "Wow, this is perfect to start this General Strike Summit." And I just want to say this is about having conversations. Like, how can there be any sort of revolution, any sort of general strike, any sort of real direct action that's effective without first having conversations, talking about ideas? It doesn't mean we all agree. It doesn't mean we're here to tell you what to do. It means we're here to bring people on and just talk, have conversations about why we need it, about what strategies we could do to combat it. And I'm talking about this late stage capitalism and all the subsequent and surrounding questions thereafter. So we want to get into it right now, but I'm going to ask Nick, is there anything else you want to say before we pass it to Case Study for his presentation?
Shout out to everyone that's watching. We got Savvy, we got JB in the house. We got a lot of great shows today. You guys can check the schedule in the description. And what we're going to do, just so we 100% clear, we are going to have 2 separate YouTube streams every day. So this is part 1, and this is going to be around a 6 to 7 hour stream. And then around the time where we start our 4 p.m. Eastern stream, we will have a second part on YouTube. So it'll be 2 separate parts of the live stream. Check out the schedule. Check the replays. We always leave the replay available. So if you miss a certain part, you can always rewind the stream. So I know this is going to be a long event, and I want this to be very interactive as well. And I know it could be very hard sometimes with the chaotic chat, but this is what we're here for. We're here for a 3-day event where we said we wanted to communicate and answer your guys' questions, and I even answer some legitimate criticism I see. That's respectfully, right? So that's the last thing I want to say. I'm very excited to see what Case Study had to say because we got a lot of great speakers. Yeah. And my thing is I want to learn from these people. Like I'm not the authority on this subject. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. I want to invite these people on because I would love to hear from people like Case Study and the many amazing activists, organizers, union leaders, and all the people we have here, right? So go ahead, CJ.
Yes. So Case Study, it's time for us to pass it to you. So we're going to go ahead and give Case Study the opportunity for this presentation. And there you go. Case Study, you got it.
Thank you so much. I just want to give some love to the people in the chat real quick. Some familiar people that I'm with, PJ Holly, Weird Pilgrim, Savvy Sab. I got to give you a special shout out. And all the people, All for Nothing and Independent Left News. I had to give my people a shout out. So let's get this party started. All right. So lessons learned from the past to shape direct actions for the future. And this is from, like I said before, this is from this awesome book. I recommend, because I'm not even going to touch a little grain of all the information that was truly in here, all the different movements that they touched on and really analyze. I'm going to do a little bit of it, but please check out this book. This is an uprising, how nonviolent revolt is shaping the 21st century. All right. So we're going to touch on some of the topics, movements versus organizations. We're going to talk on examples of direct actions, Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement, and the Birmingham campaign. That's some of the things we're going to touch on. So first, movements versus organizations. So, it's, until I read this book, I kind of maybe even didn't even think about the distinctions of between a movement and an organization. And here are some of the distinctions. So a movement. So they had the Occupy movement, right? It had a force of vote as a example of a movement. It's basically something that happens real quick. The George Floyd movement, you could say that it's something that happens real quick and it galvanizes, it captures the imagination, it captures the citizenry, and it definitely motivates people. But here we go with some of the bullet points. It says take immediate action to get immediate results, right? That's some points of the movement. Take action despite resistance from organizations and institutions like union leaders. So let me just expound on this a little bit. Sometimes there's strikes that happens, and it despite the union leader. Sometimes the union leader is the person that's trying to get the people striking to not strike. So an example of this is the basketball situation. You had LeBron James, when George Floyd happened, they were ready to strike. They were ready to stop playing basketball. And who knows if that would have continued, what kind of, maybe we would have got rid of qualified immunity. In the moment, we didn't see a year later where we are now when Tim Scott and it was Cory Booker, they said, oh, we're going to come together and we're going to come up with reformation and we're going to make something happen. That thing is done. You don't hear about it. But at the time when LeBron James and a lot of the basketball people were saying, you know what, even though it was COVID and all this stuff going on, we're going to stop playing. And what happened? President Obama, or former President Obama now, he got together with Chris Paul, who's the head of the Players Union, and they had a conversation and they decided, oh, there's other ways that we can fight for reform and whatever it was. I don't even know what that was, but nothing came out of it. So this is an example of union leaders kind of doing things despite what the resistance wanted. Okay, so more likely to take risk because of lack of worry about
Case.
Yeah.
Hey, Case, I want to share something to back you up.
Sure, go ahead.
You can continue, because I think I covered this on my show, and I explained this with Jimmy Dore when we was covering the worker strikes.
Yeah.
Because I did not lose my focus on the Nabisco strike that was going on. There are a lot of people who covered it when it was trendy, and then they left their eye off the ball. Yeah. And this is the conversation that we got to have. How do we fight these capitalist unions that undermine the workers? So look, check this out, and I'm gonna share this real quick, and I'll get your guys' thoughts, and then we can continue. So this is reported, War Socialist website. Nabisco workers strike enters second month as company and BCTGM union plot attacks on pay and healthcare. So that's the union that they are under, right? So I'm gonna skip down here. So the most recent contract offer by Modelo Mondelez, I apologize, International, Nabisco parent company. Well, that's a mouthful, but their contract offer expired, right? The talks are set to resume between Mondelez and the union on Monday. However, the negotiations will not be between two adversaries. Rather, there will be strategy sessions between companies and its union partners on how to secure the company demands. So the union leaders was meeting with the company to try to get the workers to stop striking. Yeah. That's the state in our unions in this country. Yep. Sorry, case study.
Yeah. Nah, 100%. And I was interviewing she was a DSA member one time, and she talked about how the union leaders, they're the ones that they're making six figures. You know, while the people who they're representing is the ones making minimum wage and all this stuff. So they're comfortable. You know, we got to put people in these spaces of leaders and in those positions who are feeling the same pain as the people, you know, so that they have skin in the game. And we can't, Congress is full of billionaires. And, man, we can really go off on a tangent on this, man. But definitely thank you for bringing that up. This is, that was really good. So where we're at. So basically movements, they don't let, you always hear that quote, don't let a crisis go to waste. And that's something that is unfortunate that George Floyd died, but it galvanized people internationally, people all over. There were people in other countries who were tearing down their racist statues. You know how over here we had all the down south, they had all those Southerners and they were tearing down the statues. In other countries, they were doing that because of the violence of, and the what happened to George Floyd was so graphic that it just captured the minds of the people. All right, insurgents are short-lived, so that's a con. It's not a benefit of a movement. It's short-lived, right? And you have to move fast. When it does happen, you have to move fast, and that's why whenever something like that happens, another example is when you have a school shooting, right? And people get galvanized around that. What's the first thing that happens? A lot, the NRA, the Republicans, they say, hey, wait, guys, we need to slow down. Let's not put legislation right away. We have to, you know, calm down the people. Let's relax. That's the first thing they do when it's the opposite of what we need to do. We need to go harder, and we need to find out a clear goal. And we're going to talk about this later. Have a clear goal when these movements happen, and then fight for that clear goal. All right. Let's go on to the next one. Organizations. So here's an example. An example of an organization is a NAACP, right? And it takes time to build an organization. This is probably a disadvantage, but it's also an advantage at the same time, because once you build an organization, it's harder to tear it down. It's really seeped into the consciousness. Really did. That's why the NAACP has been there for so many years, and it's still going strong to this very day, right? It lasts long once established. But the thing is, a lot of times it works for incremental change, right? And let me be nuanced. There's a good side, and follow me, guys. There's a good side of incremental change, and there's the bad side, right? The bad side is what you just think of Obama right away. And, you know, he's Mr. Change, but very small, very incremental change. He didn't think he could do a lot in a fast amount of time. But if you think about a good incremental change, Bernie Sanders, his Medicare for All plan was to go over 4 years, right? Pramila Jayapal was over 2 years. So that's an example of it's going to take time, but that's a good example of change that, you know, they have to prepare, they have to make sure there's scholarships for doctors and they have to build up the infrastructure if everybody's going to be going into Medicare for All. So that there's nuance when it comes to incremental change.
Let me chime in also with my take on that. I guess if you call that incremental change, because I wouldn't call, if you say this is the finish line, but you're just rolling it out over a certain amount of time, I don't really see that because you have a finish line as incremental change. Okay. So I guess it's just the way you view it. Like the rollout is incremental.
Yeah, exactly.
But you do know that the finish is 4 years in the example, for example, that you gave. So that's all I wanted to say. Back to your presentation.
I agree with that. So top-down approach, that's another thing about organization. It has a top-down approach and it discourages creative innovation. So back to the NAACP example. If you're a member of an NAACP in whatever chapter, do you think you can go and talk to the president of the NAACP and say, hey, you know, this TikTok thing is popping. We should get a TikTok page or account. You know, it's kind of hard to do that. And, you know, it might happen over time, but they're the last to get on board. And by the time they get on board, it's probably, you know, whack or, you know, or whatever. So that's an example of it's hard to be creative and innovative in a big organization. Could become dependent on outside money to stay funded. So this is very important. You know, even Martin Luther King came into some trouble when he was doing radical actions. You know, a lot of the people that funded the SCLC were kind of who weren't with it. They can threaten and say, hey, if you keep doing this, we can take away our money. That's like an example of when an organization is dependent on outside money. All right. And
is there a solution to that? Is there a solution for an organization? Is there a hybrid organization? You know what I mean?
I would say the first thing that I can think of is the Rhode Island Cooperative, and that's an innovative like electoral politics organization at the local level. From what I understand, they don't elect to the federal government, but they elect to the state legislator, and they do dues. They have dues among even the state legislators, like the people running, have to pay dues into a pot, and then they all share resources. So that's an example of, you know, Bernie Sanders did it as well, as far as grassroots small donations. You know, so there's definitely innovative ways that I think that we have to put into place. But like something that I'm even thinking about my own initiative that I'm working on, People's Gauntlet, and I'm thinking about having a limit of $200. I don't know if I'm putting it into place just yet, but I'm thinking like maybe $200 a month, because you don't want somebody, you know, I agree with Nick, and you talk about class traders all the time, Susan Sarandon and these people, but I feel personally funny when somebody could come in and say, hey, I'm just going to drop $10,000. You never know. Okay, but what does that come with? What strings? You know, so I'm like, if I just have a $200 limit, you know, that kind of puts the squash on that.
Hey, we talk about the difference between mutual aid and charity all the time. And what a lot of these people are, they're capitalist philanthropists, right? So they just drop the money, but the difference between building horizontal mutual aid structures is building a support system that can maintain a strike or other worker action. So if you're doing that, once again, I'll give you props if you're doing that. But if you're just dumping money in some cause, like, yo, I'm doing good, because I don't get some top-down organization, that doesn't cut it.
That doesn't cut it.
There's so much more that can be done, and I think we're going to talk about the advantage of even using your celebrity. You know, it's unfortunate that we don't have more radical celebrities that, you know, Susan Sarandon is definitely one of them that contributes, but she puts her body on the line as well. I give her tons of props because she donates. When I heard she donated to you guys, I think Fred Hampton left us or the Vanguard.
If she did, I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
If she did, I didn't know that.
I think
she's been a supporter of mine for a while. So
okay, so there you go.
She got real class solidarity because she stood in solidarity with Stephen Donziger when he was being prosecuted by the state. She stood in solidarity with indigenous people who were protesting the corporate state that was poisoning their lands. she has showed over and over again that she's willing to put her body online, and her money where her mouth is when it comes to actually standing for her community. And she actually loves and appreciates the people that she want to fight for. There are a lot of people in the boutique left who can't stand the people they claim they fight for. That's why they want to be caught dead in the American Farm March with the filthy proletariat, with the deplorables, with the filthy cranks, as some person called us, right? So this is how they think of the working class. Sabby is in education. JB is disabled. Afeni is doing the freedom fighters in the street marching, and they call us cranks.
Yeah,
so say about how they feel about the working class. Go ahead, Case.
It's definitely a big deal that I've seen those same footage. Status Quo has interviewed Susan Sarandon on the streets with I didn't see any security guards around her. And that she's a celebrity like Thelma and Louise. Come on. So I definitely give her way more props than just people just giving money. Money's nice, but there's something special about people who put their celebrity on the line to that next level. And her reputation. She's been dogged plenty of times when she went on Chris. Anyway, we could talk about this
over and over. But go ahead.
Yeah. All right, so I just wanted to definitely point out the differences between a movement. I hope everyone. I don't know if there's any questions because I'm move on to the next topic in regards to movements versus organizations that we might have come. Right now is the time.
I'll just put up a couple of comments where I see somebody just mentioning organizations. So here's one here.
Here's one. Yes, if the organization has a separate board and staff because the board makes all the decision and the staff have to exactly. That's a disadvantage to an organization where you have a top-down approach. So we kind of talked about that, where it's just the board's making the decision. Another example of this, I love them, and I hardly have hatred in my heart for anybody, but Movement for People's Party. Much love to them. They follow me on Twitter. But the whole conflict where Nick was and the people that were the staff, they had people that the Vanguard did a great report on bringing on people on their show and discussing that whole situation. Like, to me, if you're a Movement for People's Party, it's a no-brainer for Nick to go on channels that have serious questions. You know what I'm saying? We got to get into a habit of holding our leaders accountable, which the Vanguard give them a lot of props. That's what they did. And we need to put the pressure on our leftist organizations that you must come before the people. When you come in on Fred Hampton Leftist, when you go on whoever else's show, don't think of it as, I don't want to go on the show to give them views or to make them money. You're going to their audience. Audience, and the audience is going to keep you guys, Compton, Jay, and Nick, accountable if you go soft on them, right? If you ask softball questions, they're going to go, hey, what's going on? So we need to get them in a position where they have to come before the people. Answer these questions. To this day, as far as I know, I heard he went on some softballing shows. I don't even know the name of them, that they gave him softballs. He didn't really address it. Like, Nick, I see that they're doing a new elections, so then maybe there's a new leader. But if there's a new leader, you need to come on these shows where we can ask tough questions. Otherwise, I can't. One thing. Go ahead.
One thing I want to say, and that is an important point, we do got to make sure we hold A1 accountable. And this is why we talk about at Fred Hampton Leftist, the idea of promoting horizontal structures, because once again, A1 got different left ideologies, and I am of the belief of hearing different thoughts from leftists, whether it be anarchism, Marxist-Leninism. I want to hear a lot of different ideas. So
let me.
When it comes to this issue, we gotta continue to hold these people accountable, and we gotta expect them to be able to listen to our activists. We also had to come with a place of love and community and a place of understanding. I am 100% aware of the situation that I think you bring it up here. I hear Branda talk about it a few times. Once again, on a few shows, but I don't know how hardball it was on him. But we need to continue to open up communication. We can't have people ducking each other, and we can't assume worse intentions. My thing has always been, I've always been slightly more in favor of the Green Party just because I agree with their socialist approach, and the People Party believe in more of a just straight up populist approach, which and my point was I believe we should take all our shots. So I don't necessarily go after the People Party and the Green Party because they are not the establishment powers that we need to fight right now. But we can also continue to help improve those organizations so we can unite and left to continue to fight for direct actions. So if my thing is like, I always want to ask people, what is their goal? Because I see people that like really obsessed over like tearing down people who are trying to tear down the establishment. If you have a legitimate criticism of third parties, of the People Party or the Green Party, I hear you. I understand that. But are you trying to make them better? Are you trying to increase the movement? Or are you just trying to get them canceled? Or are you just trying to get them destroyed? I do not. I don't agree with that last part. I don't agree with trying to get these. I know some people that are like, yo, Nick Brennan answer, fuck the People Party. Or they'll say, oh, I disagree with this one person from the Green Party, fuck the Green Party. You guys gotta understand, a lot of these parties are localized. So I know people from the KC People Party. I talk to them. I know people from the KC Green Party. So despite all the criticism you may have international, these are great people that I know that want to fight for the betterment of our neighbors. So why would you want to cancel these people who want to work outside of duopoly just for small disagreements? Right. So I ended with that. That's my kind of take on that.
Yeah,
you want to add on that, CJ? But I have these organizations accountable though. But we need to have a horizontal approach, and we need to come at it with a point of community, right? Right. Go ahead.
Right. So what I was going to say is just to kind of integrate both what you said, Nick C. I feel like I got to say Nick C. so we know we're talking about you, Nick C. And Case. Is that we were just talking about this case before you got on. We have to get out of the not having conversations thing. Like people on the left don't think they're conditioned and propagandized just because you don't believe in the policies. You're propagandizing how you approach politics. You're propagandized on how you your discord in politics. He disagrees with me 10%. I'm done with him. That helps the duopoly.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Yeah, exactly. And another thing is you turn around and criticize the Green Party, and then you turn around and vote for Joe Biden. Make that make sense. Make that make sense. Oh, MPP is so bad. Let me go ahead and vote for Joe Biden. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. Go ahead, Case. You had something, and then you can go back to your
I'm just going to finish the point that how can you call yourself a people's party if you don't come before the people? That's what I want to say. You got to come before the people.
You do have to come before the people. I do agree with that. I mean, FHL did that with a situation that's long gone, but we did that. It's hard. It's not easy, but the people appreciate that, and they say, "This is some real people. This is a real group."
The question is, are you trying to lead the left movement to be loved, or are you trying to be a leader? There's some people that trying to be loved. There's some. It's hard to just try to be a leader, right? But anyway, I want Case to.
Let's get back to your presentation.
Sorry about that. No worries. I just want to give a shout out to the Vanguard because I think they are create a model for this, because remember when they had Proud Socialists on and they had
Ryan Grimm. The Vanguard is very, very good at that.
Give them a ton of props.
But this is what we have to do. Absolutely.
Yeah. And they call out people who came on their show, right? So this, like, I saw them call out Jimmy Dore for stuff, and Jimmy Dore came on his show. They could have been like, oh, let's go easy on Jimmy because we want him to keep coming on. But they said, hey, we're going to give it straight. I went on their show to promote the People's Gauntlet. A year from now, when hopefully the thing is popping, and I get, if I do something bad, I'm hoping I don't do anything bad, but let's say they need to check me, I'm going to come on the show. If they say something like critical, I will always be I promise you right now, anytime something happens, I will come, even if I.
That's what we have to start doing. Like,
if you don't agree, even if you don't agree, I don't agree with you.
Hey, I'm gonna say this, and then we can move on. Like we all have disagreement with each other, and I know some people may have criticism of the Vanguard or whatever. But I was at the Medicare for All March. I talked to these guys, and only thing I care about is, are you operating in good faith? And I talked to the people from the Vanguard. We often Kansas City here. These people they're good faith actors, and whether you agree with them or disagree with them, I think trying to paint them as like, Anyway, I don't know. Well, let's pick actors. I'm gonna move on to Case. Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead, Case.
All right. Let's move on from movement versus organizations, and now we're going to get into some examples. So, Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement. They had something called. It was initially called, I believe, Operation X, but it was also called Operation C, and the C stands for confrontation. Martin Luther King knew that they were risking their lives running this strategy. I quote, "In my judgment, some of the people sitting here today may not come back alive from this campaign." And create a situation. This was the purpose of the Operation C. Create a situation so crisis packed that it will garner major media press and appeal to the public. Some examples of this was the economic pressure via Montgomery bus boycott, dramatic lunch counter sit-ins, and pack the jails arrest strategy in Albany. Mm-hmm. And then the SCLC organization, that was Martin Luther King's organization, they prepared for the repercussions. This is something that's very important. They were very meticulous and very strategic about what's to come. So They would make sure they had enough money to bail people out, right? They would have enough money for the cost of the violation of court injunctions. They made plans they even planned out how long people should stay in jail before being bailed out. They didn't just bail people out right away. There was a strategy to pack the jails with as many people as possible.
Let me pause you there.
Go ahead.
I want to take the opportunity here to say, this is why we came up with the General Strike Summit. We are all, for those like all of us, for all of our comrades that are going to be coming up, we're ready to jump in the streets right now for a general strike. But we need more people and we need strategy. We need to talk. We need to come up. We can't just go out there unless it's something spontaneous. Like if there's a George Floyd event, you need something like that for an instant spark of a general strike. Yeah. But absent of that, it takes this planning. And look at the planning that MLK and the Civil Rights Movement did, where they planned, let's pack the jails. They can't arrest all of us and put us in jail. Exactly. So let's pack the jails. Let's prepare and have bail money ready. Yeah. That's planning. Yeah. That's the strategy. That's what we have to do. And that's why we have to have these conversations. Back to you.
Yeah, definitely. And they packed the jail so much that Bill Connor wanted to discourage people from continuing to protest. That's when he upped it up a notch. And we're going to talk about that real soon, where he brought out the dogs. They brought out the fire hoses. And because of the pictures, that's what we're going to talk about. All right. So the last thing is calculated boycott effectiveness. So they calculated how much money a business is going to lose ahead of time. They said, hey, if we do this and this and this, they could lose this amount of money. Therefore, we can go to them and say, hey, you're losing this amount of money. We need you to desegregate. We need to take down the whites only signs, right? So this is what happened. It happened. They started this in April. Matter of fact, let me move on. Because basically they started it in April, which is at the height of Easter, that holiday. And that was the second largest payday, or it was almost like their version of Black Friday, you know. And so they strategically thought about it to do it that way. So let me move on. Some obstacles that Martin Luther King faced himself was opponents to compete in civil rights organizations, questions of Martin Luther King's leadership. Some foundations that funded the SCLC was dissatisfied. So this is where that pressure, because you're getting money from outside organizations, can kind of affect what you're doing. Because of Dr. King's youth. Now, this is how strategic they were. They insisted on calling him doctor out of respect because he was so young. He started when he was 33. And if you want the people outside to take a person who's young seriously, you have to everybody else in the organization, they call him by their first name, but they insisted on calling Dr. King. And to this day, we say Dr. Martin Luther King to this day because of that. All right.
Let's pause right there. Can you go back to that slide? Now, I'm not at all comparing FHL to the Civil Rights Movement. We aspire to be that. But you tell me that's not the same thing that's happening to us. CJ, the points right there. The points are written in black and white, Nick. I'm looking at, that's the same thing. That's what's going to happen, people. They're going to attack each and every one of us like they just did just yesterday.
CJ, and this is why I said we must reframe the issue. I always reject the liberal premise and the people who think they are progressive, but they repeat the premise. Where we need a civil rights movement because things are as bad as they've been. This is the same thing with people who say they disagree with reparations. Oh, you're not a slave. Bro, the state never stopped stealing our wealth. The state never stopped exploiting our labor. Anyone who has basic critical thinking skills, anyone who read basic history, understands civil asset forfeiture that steals our wealth, they understand that we've been victimized illegally by Wall Street where they illegally tanked our wealth. So that's why our wealth right now is lower than it was in the civil rights era.
Right.
But people are like, oh, you wasn't a slave though.
Right. It diminishes all of the oppression that Black people has gone on, as if we are owed reparations just for the beatings, just for the actual picking of cotton. That's not what that means.
And when we resist, what do they do to us? They commit war crimes against their own populace. They use tear gas. They shoot us with what they call rubber bullets, which is actually still encased bullets. What that actually can make people lose their eyes. Well, it's still encased in rubber. People lost their eyes. People have bones broken. It's a devastating weapon that they use indiscriminately. They use it against Black women in our protests. And people think our country is somehow better on race. We got a paramilitary that was infiltrated by white supremacists, shooting Black activists, indigenous activists with rubber bullets, and they're gassing them. But people don't think we need a general strike to stop this. But sorry, Case, I want you to continue.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear. So we're gonna I have to 10:45, 10:50.
You'll go closer than that because this has got us going right here. I didn't expect to get going this early, we'll probably take it where the handoff is more like closer to maybe 7:50, 7:55. So if you got to take it to there, that's fine. So go ahead. Cool, we'll try to interrupt less. Go ahead. Proceed.
All right. So now we're going to go into the details of Project C. Right, this Project C strategy, also known as the Birmingham campaign, or the Birmingham campaign, is a great example of using the Project C strategy. So the first thing you got to do when you're setting strategy, set a clear goal. So the clear goal in the Birmingham campaign was to desegregate public facilities in Birmingham, Alabama, by putting pressure on Birmingham's merchants during the Easter season, the second biggest shopping season of the year. They strategically thought to do this. Now you have the leaders. You had Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend James Bevel, and Fred Shuttlesworth, among others. So they had Martin Luther King was a national figure, and then they had the local figures who came in to lead this and to collaborate and have coalition. Now this started April 3rd, 1963. It launched with a mass meetings, launch counter sit-ins, and a march on City Hall, and a boycott of downtown merchants, right? So when they first started, they wanted to start earlier, but they didn't gain that much traction. So that's when they brought in Martin Luther King, who's a national figure, to come to the local area, and he was able to garner more volunteers just because of his celebrity for other reasons. So there was retaliation because they were starting to gain success. They started shutting down shops and disrupting the merchants, and people weren't making money. So just 7 days, the retaliation came. April 10th, the city government obtained a state court injunction against the protest, and then they started putting people in jail. Here's the escalation. May 2nd, more than 1,000 African-American students attempted to march because they were able to garner that amount of volunteers. Wow. And also at first they weren't letting the youth join, but then they made a strategic change and said, okay, you know what, these people could get us more bodies in the streets, let's let them join. And it allowed them to join the march into downtown Birmingham, where hundreds were arrested. So this is the thing, hundreds were arrested. The next few days, images of children being blasted by high pressure fire hose, clubbed by police officers, and attacked by dogs appeared on television, in the newspaper, sparking international outrage. So that's that George Floyd moment back then, you know. And Martin Luther King, he thought about how can he be effective? He put his own body on the line and he got arrested. And that was something his father was telling him, no, don't do it. Other people was telling him, no, don't do it. And he decided to do it. And what did we get out of it? The famous letters from the Birmingham jail. That's what we got out of that. And also, it got the president of the United States, JFK at the time, involved because his wife was afraid they were going to make him disappear in the jail. And they contacted JFK, and he said, don't worry about it. We're going to make sure. He made calls, him and Robert F. Kennedy, who's the attorney general, they made calls to make sure that Martin Luther King would be okay. So here's victory. May 10th, 1963, King and Fred Shuttlesworth announced an agreement with the city of Birmingham to desegregate lunch counters, restroom, drinking fountains, and the department stores, fit-in rooms within 90 days to hire blacks in stores as salesmen and clerks, and to release of hundreds of jail protesters on bond. So this is something that they didn't say, oh, we're going to get legislation passed, or we're going to do this or that. They had a targeted goal, and they were able to accomplish it within a couple months. April, 2 or 3 months right there. So let me keep it moving. But unfortunately, with success comes more retaliation. So I didn't want to sugarcoat the whole situation. You got to look at the aftermath, right? So here's more retaliation. May 11th, 1963, a bomb damaged Martin Luther King's motel. Alfred Daniel King, Martin Luther King's brother, he had a home in Alabama that was bombed. And then, of course, the famous September 15th, 1963, KKK members bombed the Birmingham 16th Street Baptist Church, which had been the stage center for many of the spring demonstrations, and the 4 young black girls died. But nonetheless, Birmingham was considered one of the most successful campaigns of the civil rights era. And let me remind you, this was before they had just had a big failure, the SLC and Martin Luther King, before doing this strategy. So something I'm going to mention at the end is we always have to keep fighting. We're going to fail. You learn from your lessons and you keep moving. So let me keep it moving as we keep going. 1043. Dangers of not planning ahead. So here's some examples outside of the civil rights movement. There were the color revolutions of 2003, the Rose Revolution in Georgia, that's over in the Russia area. 2004, Orange Revolution in Ukraine. Young people played a critical role in leading the movements, but were unprepared for what would happen after they accomplished their goals. So they wanted to overthrow, the person that was leading at the time. They were corrupt people. But once they got the person overthrown, this is what happened. They found it harder to ensure that the politicians who they might have aligned with to revolt and to get back power, the politicians that they aligned with, when they put them in power afterwards, they did not remain true to the change that they were trying to fight for. The politicians, they got back the power, and they got corrupt. And I'm not talking got back the power from the original person that was there.
Okay.
I'm talking about the politicians that were aligned with them during the revolt, who was helping them protest, who was trying to build power. Once they got in power, they were the ones that got corrupted. And also, if there's no leader from the movement, from, like, for example, from the youth, they should have probably had a leader. And we talked about this before. People that have skin in the games should be the leader, right? But what happens when there's a power vacuum? So this is the other side of not having electoral politics. The army filled that power vacuum. The army had the guns, they had the organization, and they were able to get into power. And with the guys that, we're going to calm things down and we're going to da-da-da. But then they got into power and they didn't let up, and they became like a dictatorship. So, all right, let me keep it moving. So here are just a few examples, and I encourage everybody to go to look up this. It's called the 198 Methods of Nonviolent Action. Gene Sharp is a pretty famous political theorist in this kind of field. And here's just a few that I'm going to touch on real quick. Formal statements. So, of course, public speeches, mass petitions, withdrawal, walkouts, silence, turning one's back. You've seen that happen. Marches, parades. These are just a few examples of direct actions that you can strategize. But I would implore that we're in the 21st century, so there's more ways, there's more innovative ways that we can have direct actions, and that's something that we have to definitely think about. All right, should a movement have a leader? So let's have that. I know I talked for a little while, so let's get back to discussion. Some pros and cons of a leader having a movement having a leader. Pros: a charismatic leader can motivate, can shape, and grow a movement. So, for example, MLK, Fred Hampton, they help, and it also they help make quick decisions. Sometimes, that's one thing that you could criticize Occupy Wall Street. They always had those, one mic, and whenever they had to make a decision, everybody had to vote, and like they didn't have just one surrogate. That potentially that person could have went to the White House and negotiate if they had skin in the game, meaning and hopefully not corruptible, because you could offer somebody a CNN contract and then that leader is gone, But a leader can go negotiate like what Martin Luther King did to negotiate with the business leaders and have them take down the whites only signs, and so that's some of the pros of having a leader. And then I'm going to say the cons, and then I'm going to give the floor to my guys. A con is if the leader falls, the movement dies. So an example of that, like I just said, leaders getting corrupt or killed, unfortunately, in the case of Fred Hampton. So let me give
elected in the case of Bernie Sanders, and that's what happened to that campaign / movement, if you can call it that. Should a movement have a leader, Nick? I'll let you take it first.
There's a lot of discussions to have on the pros and cons. And we talk about this a lot on Fred Hampton Left, right? And I truly believe in, once again, the unification and dictatorship of the proletariat, and a movement that is not led by bosses or leaders. No leaders, no bosses or gods. We lead by example as a movement. We can lead as examples. There are people that can serve different roles in the movement. This is what Rome talks about all the time. Right. So for example, Rome, you notice he's not on Fred Hampton Left as often as some of us are, because he's traveling the country doing a tour for the poor. Now there are some people who are unable to do that. So what do? They may knit sweaters to give to people. So as a left movement, we need to acknowledge that there should not be initial hierarchies. But there are people that could be intellectual leaders. There are people that can help steer the movement in a certain way. And as a community, we can have dialogue. But once again, that's more what I lean towards. So I lean towards no on terms of leaders. But I do understand the merits and the value of having leaders. But that leader, if a leader is anointed, they must understand that the community around him is had just as much say, and their take on the movement is just as valid as them. And I'll give you one last example, and I'll pass it right to you. There are people that say we shouldn't criticize the Justice Democrats or AOC, and people say this all the time. And when I went to Hassan, they said this as well. They said, "How dare you? What have you done, Nick?" You guys see that? You see how they use the hierarchy structures in order to silence legitimate criticisms? So even if you do believe that AOC or someone should be a leader, I should have the rightful ability to criticize her, even though I don't have a PhD, even though I'm some broke black guy from the Midwest. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry to leaders in classes. I have that right. So that's what I believe in. Right back to you, Jay.
100%. So I got 5 minutes. So let's see.
Go ahead.
Yeah, get this rest of this going. You mentioned this on your stream yesterday. You talked about infiltrators, and I wanted to bring this up. And I like exactly what you said, Nick. You said, you don't want to call anybody CIA. I have the same mindset. I'm not going to call somebody CIA just out the back because you have no idea, But what I would do is say, like, okay, that person is acting like an infiltrator, and sometimes, or I would hope people are not nefarious. So I would say to that person, hey, look, you're acting like an infiltrator, and we need you to. And I would think that every organization, leftist organization, should have this on the screen, like on a wall.
Okay, so I'll be real quick, but people need to get real, and people need to understand the reality. People attack the Medicare Fraud March for being infiltrated. Guys, the Black Panthers were infiltrated.
Yeah, definitely.
Left movements get infiltrated. That's the reality that we have to deal with. And people who claim that does not happen are deeply unserious people. But sorry, go ahead, Case.
Right. This is like the rule that I would like to throw out there. Like a 3 strikes and you're out. If have this plastered on the walls, like of an unproductive. You don't even have to call it infiltrators or the CIA. Call it unproductive volunteers, unproductive members. These are the examples, and you want to put it in the members' mind of that organization that you do not want all these different points. You do not want to do it, and if you keep hitting, you at 1 strike, 2 strike, 3 strikes. We have to know. I'm against cancel culture, but there's times where you got to kick a member out.
Right, we're about restorative justice, but we're not stupid. Like, we forgive you. We want you to be blessed. Yeah. We're fighting for you too, but go over there. Like, that can be done. You get what I'm saying? So go ahead.
100%. I read another book on organizing, and they made that point that there's sometimes you can have a meeting, and there's that one person that keep raising their hand and just asking dumb questions. And I mean, you would hope people are in good faith, but sometimes that person could be dead serious and just be a nuisance to the movement. We got to cut the fat. There's times that you got to keep it real, right? All right, let me keep it moving. How much time we got? All right, 3 minutes.
Just keep going. We'll make it work.
All right. We're soon there. So this is something that's not in the book that I thought of. Right? Is the trifecta of left synergy. Right. And this could be probably terminology that have better terminology or better terms, a better way to put it. But you're going to get the gist of what I'm trying to say. And if I had long enough time, I would put each of these words 1, 2, and 3 and have arrows going to each one like in a circle, because this is a synergy where we each need each other. Right. This is what I'm trying to say. You have left electoral politics. So we need our left leaders in Congress to pass left legislation, but the left, that electoral, that person needs the grassroots organization to help get them elected, but the grassroots needs them to pass left policy, right? But then we need left mass media. I call it the mass media because mass for everybody in the left ecosystem, because there's so many flavors. 10 years ago we had 1 or 2 different people, but today we're blessed to have so many. You can find who you like. You can find somebody that reaches your heart. But I think that even though there's so much division and so many beefs in the left ecosystem, I think all of us could have galvanized if Bernie became the nominee. I believe everybody would have been like, all right, guys, we got our person. All right, am I right or wrong? All right, thank you.
No, I believe you.
So
I agree.
From TYT to Jimmy, I think even Jimmy Dore to whatever. If 2020 Bernie would have got the nomination, we could have all came together, held hands, and like, yo, let's go, right? So that's the left mass media that we're talking about, because the mainstream media defeated Bernie, with all the different slanders and all that still happens to this day. From Bernie to India Walton, that just happened, and they basically kept talking about the fact that her car got towed because she didn't pay the registration on a car, and they try to put a person that's poor running for a higher office, and they shamed her for being poor. And that's the local media. So we need each other. And unfortunately, a big qualm that I have is the fact that we have candidates who use the left media to get into office. They go everywhere. Then when they get elected, you never see them again. Or maybe they come here and there sparingly, but they pretty much drop off. And that's something that I'm hoping, and as somebody, and I'm different in the sense that I do believe in electoral politics. So I'm glad you guys didn't cancel me and say, hey, you got, literally the People's Gauntlet is an electoral politics initiative. But you guys didn't cancel me and say, hey, you can't do, workshop.
Listen, electoral politics, if we live in the system is corrupt. Electoral politics is the process of the system. The system the corrupt system is in place. We want to be doing things in that system as we're doing direct action.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to say not Fred Hampton left is what I'm saying is it needs to be flipped. We're doing more electoral politics and less direct action. Let's do more direct action, still do electoral politics, but the focus needs to be more on the direct action. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think there's tools in the toolbox, and electoral politics. I've heard you said this before, Compton J, that that's just a tool that can be used.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And when I talk about the ecosystem, I've learned about mutual aid through watching Fred Hampton Leftists. I didn't know as much as I know until watching you guys. But because I'm working on the People's Gauntlet, which is like, and a lot of energy is going into that. Probably, I would say a lot of my energy is going to electoral politics, but I'm willing and open to direct action, to mutual aid, and to even finding out. I'll be even thinking about ways to incorporate mutual aid into the People's Gauntlet, and that's something that I'm unconsciously thinking of. But you guys definitely focus mainly on mutual aid and direct action, while other people can focus. Okay, we over here working on electoral politics, and you might have people over here working on left mass media or whatever else. That's the whole point of
they believe in top-down structures, and that's what we want to educate people on, the difference between the structures.
Right.
So once again, you can use electoral politics as a tool as long as it's a horizontal structure.
Right.
Like, if you actually have a socialist actually running that would get my interest. But most people that was running, that's not their format. But sorry, Case, right back to you.
Hey, Case, you said you could stick around for the next segment.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, so maybe we'll keep you around for the next segment if the next people will say, as long as everybody who's on next is fine with that.
Okay.
I'll take a break because I'm gonna be back right on in an hour. We have a show
with Professor Zonkas. Is that the one you're talking about?
We had Kareem Batesh on. I'm gonna be on in about an hour. Hope you guys enjoyed the first hour. I think we can start the transition to the next show.
Yeah, slides. That's it. I'm gonna go.
I don't want to rush you.
Yeah.
Okay. Real quick.
If you need to take off, Nick, you can take off. I'll go ahead and complete the transition. As you finish a case study, since you're gonna be staying on, you're fine to kind of bleed over if you need to. Okay. So go ahead and finish your.
Cool. And the last thing I want to say, my shameless plug for the People's Gauntlet, is that the whole purpose of it is to have a bottom-up approach to electoral politics. You know, the focus is having the candidates come before the people and we vet you. You know, instead of like, and God bless them, Justice Democrats, they're trying to do their best as much as they can. You got Democracy for America, but we disagree on certain things, right? Who else we got? Our Revolution, they're pragmatic. Progressives, whatever that means, right? So the thing is, you don't know how they're vetting their people. Like, it's not public. You know, we don't know who's the gatekeeper of saying we're going to endorse this person, while People's Gauntlet is literally you're coming before the people with all the topics. But anyway, let's continue on and finish. We're basically at the end. So this is my suggestion, and this can definitely be formed, you know, over the next 3 days or at some point. But we need to have a solid list of demands for the general strike. So I'm giving a couple of suggestions. Medicare for all, $30 an hour minimum wage, housing for all, cooperatives jobs for all. So it's not just WPA was made back in FDR's day to kind of be like a de facto jobs for all. I'm talking about cooperatives jobs for all, because it's longer lasting, and it's the people who are going to control the destiny of that job. So you don't even you're kind of even taking out unions out of this equation and giving the power directly to the people. Anyway, $2,000 a month universal basic income / Social Security for all. Maybe Social Security for all. I heard that's a way to market a UBI for everybody. So, all right. And then once again, I just want to shout out to this book by Mark Egler and Paul Egler. Please check it out, read it. If you listen to audiobooks like me, I'm an audible person that I like to listen to books. Check it out if you can. And then this is the last slide. They must make mistakes and learn from them. Make more mistakes and learn anew. Martin Luther King. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes, but we're going to learn from them, and we're going to improve and move on. Thank you so much for giving me this time, and I appreciate talking to the audience. Much love to everybody in all the spectrums of the left. One thing I want to say real quick is I had a promo. I unpinned it now, and in my promo, I had people from David Dole to everybody to my man Nico House. Nico House was the very first person that ever tweeted me when I had 0 Twitter followers, and then I had David Dole. He was the next person that found my account, and he started posting it. And he was giving me shout outs in his videos, and that helped me grow tremendously. And I purposely put people who didn't agree with each other and different, they had different audience in that same video, because I wanted to show that even though we have differences, they all use you know, my clips because we're all on the left.
Right.
So I wanted to show solidarity with everybody. And there were people in the comments that were like, oh, this guy's the boutique left and this person is the alt left and all different names. And I put a tweet that said specifically, I did that purposely to show that we could work together.
Right.
Thank you so much.